Hello, welcome to the Joseki Masters YouTube channel. Now, I've recently gone from 5Q to 1 Dan. I'm actually much stronger than 1 Dan. I just rated myself way too low because I hadn't played Go in a while, 2 decades essentially. So I thought I forgot a lot. That didn't happen. But, playing up through the Q ranks, and I pretty much straight won from 5K to 1 Dan. I'm going up again. I've realized these special mistakes that Caillou players do, and even 1 Dan players do at times, and I'm going to explain 3 specific mistakes that you should not actually do in the opening game that gives me advantage and allows me to take over the game, because I have an advantage in the beginning. Now, this is the basic Joseki. However, this is pretty even. However, for some reason, in the opening game, Black will just play this sometime, right afterwards, and that's a bad move because let's just say, something like this. Black will just play this randomly sometimes, and that allows me to make a knight's move or something, which is going to be bigger than this stone. And if you try to capture this stone, congratulations, you got an extra 4 points. That will allow me to play somewhere else, which gives me a huge advantage because I get 2 extra stones at the start. And even if you do this, there's not a good way to threaten these 2 stones. I mean, these 2 stones are pretty solid, and they're very, very light. So you can spend many, many moves capturing each stone. And, my 2 moves that I gain here beats, this move and this move. So I see a lot of single-digit Q players do this, and this actually gives white a significant advantage. On the other hand, sometimes I see white go ahead and make this move as well, and that gives me another move somewhere else on the board. And that's bad for black because realistically, there's very little way. You can attack this black group, but if you attack, you have to remember I'm probably going to pincer. If you do this, I'm just going to try to jump up and attack you. So most white players will actually go up. But the thing is, if you actually go up, it's actually really hard to kill me. It's actually really hard to kill black. So it's very, very difficult to actually make black. It's actually very, very difficult to actually attack this group in the corner, even with an extra move. And there's a lot of eye spacers jumping up here and stuff. So it's not a very good group to attack unless your Moyo is extremely strong outside, which in the beginning it's not going to be. And giving up this knight's move or another big move on the board is just not worth it. So that is the first Joseki mistake that I see a lot of SDK players actually make. And in my opinion, although this move is a very big move, it is not nearly as big as giving it an additional knight's move or an additional approach or attack elsewhere on the board. Essentially, black has Sente in this, and black should play elsewhere on the board. And white should not go ahead and do this at first because that's not big enough of a move. If you do that, give black another Sente, you will actually be behind then. So I think I've seen this in 15 to 20 games on my way up from 5Q to 1 Dan, and that's just not a very smart go play. The other go play is the kick. That's fine. And then black pincers. Now, black pincering, there's a basic Joseki here, but I see a lot of Q players actually make this mistake. And I made it once because I didn't know exactly how this, I didn't actually know how these Josekis actually worked out. But, you attach Hane on the bottom, disconnect, extend downward. And black actually does have to extend here. Black actually, black actually extends this way. Now, the correct play here is to actually do this. And, oops, no, not that. The correct play here for white is to actually do this. That gives black the corner, but you get a lot of influence. And this is actually better for white, which is why I don't like this pincer move all that much. However, if you Hane, but I see a lot of white players actually Atari and then do this. I've done this once because I just wanted to see the variation, and I wasn't familiar with this Joseki, but that's not the way the Joseki is played. But I've seen this a couple of times, and it ends up very, very bad for white because black can just Hane and live. But the thing about you is you have to exchange a ton of these with black, and that's very, very bad for black. Black at any time can just do this. And I would actually just do this if you know how this plays out, right? Like that. Once black does that, black doesn't even need the ladder. You have to change, like, because you can't beat this. You can't beat him in a liberty fight until you change several. And by the time you exchange several, um, he could just do this, you could do this, and, like, the liberty fight is pretty complex. Or he could just honestly live, and then you've got two weak groups now that you actually have to deal with, and there's not much you can actually do. That's a very, very poor exchange for for white, and this is easily a game-losing exchange. So I've actually seen this mistake being made a couple times. One of the thing about SDK players is they don't know how to sacrifice stones to get an advantage. A lot of times they seem to think that the entire point of Go is to save all their stones or kill all the opponent's stones. That's not the point of Go. The point of Go is to win the game. And you win the game by getting more territory than your opponent. It does not matter how you get more territory than your opponent. You just have to do it. So if sacrificing stones actually gives you the advantage, then you should sacrifice stones. The thing about this is that, yes, it gives them the corner, and I think SDK players and even low DAM players tend to be extremely obsessive about corner territory, which I feel like is a big mistake. Because if you exchange this, honestly, if you exchange this, this comes better out for white. You make his stone here useless and kind of weak, and you also gain influence on this side. So I think that what you gain is worth more than the 15 points on the corner. So that actually favors white, which is why I don't think the black pincer is necessarily a good move. The usual thing is like doing this, right? But I also found out that a lot of black players and white players, like this should be Sente for black, right? But a lot of times black just does this and connects, whether I have the ladder or not. Even a lot of times, even if I have the ladder, they'll do that, and then that basically gives me free Sente to move on an open board, which is bad. Yes, you gain the corner points, but right now it's not worth Sente elsewhere on the board. Even if I didn't have the ladder, I might not actually answer this because I have actually opportunities. I have other ways to play the cut if you try to cut. And it's not really that serious for me because I can afford to lose the one stone to gain outside influence once again. So Gote here right now at the beginning of the game is not actually a good play. Is definitely not a good play in my opinion for black. So you should not exchange that. You should just go elsewhere. And I've actually seen white do this as well. And that's obviously a Gote move. You're like, I have the clamp, and the thought is I have the clamp here on the corner now. That's really not worth Sente at the beginning of the game. So that's like just lack of situational awareness. So like this is indeed a big move later on in the game. Definitely do this when you have time later on in the game, but it's not worth Sente at the beginning of the game. And I've gained huge advantages by people actually making this kind of mistake early on in the game. The other thing I wanted to mention is situational awareness. We're going to play another Joseki on this side. It's going to be like the basic Joseki on this side. And this Joseki is actually fine. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that's like that a lot of Q players make. When white approaches from this side, sometimes they will still play the pincer move here. And this is actually not a good idea. This is actually an even trade Joseki. Sure, this is an even trade Joseki, right? You guys know this Joseki. But this is an even trade Joseki. But the thing is, like, in this situation, once this is already played on this side, it's no longer an even trade Joseki because you essentially get nothing on this side. This is very, very weak, actually. There's still like cuts. And because white actually has built his territory and influence over here, your wall over here doesn't really do all that much. Your wall over here really doesn't do all that much. Usually like this variation is just left like this. Your wall over here doesn't do anything. And you can't get, like, your influence doesn't really matter over here because white already has this. So you basically just gave him the corner for almost absolutely nothing because this influence is basically negated by white's already. And you also, it's kind of a gote, so white gets to play. So that's like situational awareness. Like if someone already has influence on this side, don't give up the corner for influence on the same side because it's not worth it. Obviously, if white approaches here, this is the correct move to make. You still gain the corner territory, and you leave moves like this available in the future. And yes, the knight's move is better than this move in this situation. So you take the knight's move, and you basically gain Sente over here. In this particular situation, I might actually go ahead and do this, but probably not right now. I would actually go elsewhere as well. So that's the thing, like it's situational awareness, because essentially you want your group to be settled, and you want to have some kind of territory. But you don't want to build influence over here because white already has influence over here. I've seen this mistake quite a few times as well. And that immediately gives the other side an advantage if the other side knows how to make use of the advantage. So those are 3 simple mistakes that people make. Like if one side has already been kind of settled and played, don't actually try to build influence on that side. Take the territory instead, or try to build influence on the other side. Like, you also don't want to you could also large pincer, but like this Joseki, this is actually not too bad for white because he can actually connect this group, and now all the side is his. But this isn't too bad for black, especially if there's a black stone over here. However, if there's a white stone over here, that is actually not a good trade to make, in my opinion. I mean, you could do this and it'd be okay, but that's not a good trade over here if white has stuff over here. So like, try to play to your advantage, play to your advantages, play to your strong side. Don't try to build influence on your opponent's strong side. And that's the third thing I'm going to explain. So the first 2 are kind of like just situational awareness, like, learn how to sacrifice stones to build your own influence. Don't screw yourself trying to save all your stones, which is the lower you go in the Caillou ranks, the more you'll see that mistake. And also don't let the other player have so many Tanukis on you in the beginning of the game, because even if a move looks big, it's probably not quite as big as another, a basic opening move, which is actually really, really large. And you will let your opponent build up. Build up advantages where it's very hard to gain them back. So I hope you learned something from this. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button, and I will see you guys in the next episode.